Okay, part two. Just to give a little background information, you do remember the Compassion Fund that was done for Buffalo, New York for the shooting. So there was a Compassion Fund, and there was a certain amount that was supposed to be given to survivors, and then there was another section of the fund that was called the Buffalo Together Fund. So there was $5.6 million in the Compassion Fund for the survivors. And it was split between 169 people who fell into 5 categories. The first category were the family of the deceased. Now, it had to be a designated individual from each family. And the family, in some way, was in charge of coming up with who that individual was. And only that one individual would receive the funds, right? And they had to be verified, etc. Then Section B were those people who were shot but not killed. Okay, and Section C were people who were physically injured and could prove it after you had to go to the hospital immediately after the shooting or within a certain amount of time. So if you didn't go to the hospital within a certain amount of time, or if you didn't have any documentation to prove that you were hurt during the shooting, you did not fall into category C. Then there's category D, which the majority of people fell into, including people who were actually physically injured but could not prove that they were physically injured from the shooting. And all the people who were not physically injured but were psychologically injured. And then the last category, category E, were the people who worked for TOPS but were not there at the time of the shooting. So we have these groups of people, and they total 169 people who were verified through a process, and the money was split. Just so you know, the amount of money that was given to each person within each category went down as you go down in the alphabet. So, of course, category A got the largest payouts, and that would be 10 payouts because there were 10 individuals who perished during the shooting. Category B would be only 3 because there were 3 people who were shot but not killed. Category C, the people who were injured who could prove it. As far as I know, no one was able to prove that they were physically injured from the shooting, but let me tell you about that for a minute. There were a number of people who were hurt, including myself. And the shock from being in such a devastating situation, being shot at while you're at work or while you're shopping for groceries or while you're trying to duck in your car or put your groceries in your car or something along those lines, the likelihood that you went straight to the hospital where there's a whole bunch more people and you might not feel safe, very, very slim. And I think that's why nobody was declared in category C, because everyone was scared to leave their homes. I left my home. I was drawn to go back to the scene every day because I just could not believe what happened. So I'm an anomaly, but I couldn't go in the building. I couldn't go inside the gate or anything like that, but I did have to go and see because my brain could not deal with the idea that this really happened. So still, shock, right? So shock prevented me from realizing that I hurt myself during the shooting, even though I was limping for about 2 weeks. Noticeably limping. And there were plenty of others who were physically hurt, clearly, obviously physically hurt, but could not prove it because we were too in shock, too scared for our lives, too heavily psychologically impacted to get documentation that we were physically hurt from the shooting, so we didn't fall in category C. Category D, everyone in category D got $9,500. That's the majority of people. There were only 10 in category A, 3 in category B, none in category C. The majority of us fell into category D. That's everyone who was present, who ran for their lives, who hid for their lives, who saved their lives in some way, fell into category D. If you could prove it, because there were some people who couldn't even prove they were in category D. Right? And then there's category E. They got $1,500. Out of $5.6 million. That's just to give you an idea of what we've been going through for the last year. So that's part 2. It's just some background information. Stay tuned for part 3. Thanks for listening.